He puts his finger in it and he's like very sticky and he puts it in his mouth. And the other guy's like, what you doing? And he's like, huh, yeah, maple syrup. And he's like, mate, that's not maple syrup. They're the semen samples. And welcome to our channel.
I'm Prams, and I'm here to tell you crazy stories from around the world.
And I'm Dan, and I embellish those stories for my own amusement.
We're pretty new here, but if you're enjoying what we're doing, please give us a like and subscribe. So, Canada has a special strategic reserve. Not just gold, not just oil, but maple syrup.
Don't tell America that.
Wars have been started for less, so...
Yeah, true.
So inside a quiet warehouse in rural Quebec sits thousands of industrial barrels stacked like a sugary fortress. Each one holds maple syrup worth 28 times more per litre than crude oil.
Whoa. Wow, that's some expensive maple syrup.
Yeah, maybe America is like putting its cart on the wrong horse. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I want to put it in my car. I bet I can do 0 to 60 in like 8 seconds with maple syrup. Probably won't go anywhere.
And if you thought that was sweet, wait till you hear how a group of thieves hatched the stickiest heist in Canadian history.
Sounds like a good title.
It actually does. Sticky heist.
That's where my mind is. Is that where we are in the story?
Sticky heist gang. That's all going to be needed to be bleeped out.
Yeah,
bleep,
basically.
bleep.
Yeah, it's bouquet heist.
Wow, okay.
She stole it all.
A sticky surprise. To understand why anyone would steal syrup, you have to understand Quebec. Around 70% of the world's maple syrup comes from this one Canadian province. The industry is tightly organized under the Federation of Quebec Maple Syrup Producers. They regulate how much syrup farmers can sell. They set prices and they stockpile surplus production. And this reserve exists for economic stability. See, if harvests fail one year, Canada releases syrup from storage, so supermarket shelves never go empty and prices never spike.
So when you've got like world leaders, they're coming together, one comes in, it's a briefcase of cash, another one brings a briefcase of gold, and then kind of like, what this boys, like, and it's just maple syrup just pouring out of this briefcase. You'll be like, so how much can I put you down for? It's just like, no, I'm okay, thanks,
They give like, the US president a handshake and it's just like, I'm stuck with the honey and the syrupy.
Wow, it's a weird world we live in, I think. I wonder what it was like during COVID for the Canadians. When people were stealing, well, not stealing, people were taking toilet paper off the shelves and there was just a shortage of toilet paper. Was it maple syrup for these guys? They'd be like, I don't mind shitting myself. but what I can't live without is my waffles deliciously
lathered
and maple syrup. That's what I can't do without. I imagine supermarkets, they probably had to increase security around the maple syrup aisle. Theft has gone up 200%. People are trying to steal the maple syrup and Prams. So you got like people, they were stockpiling toilet paper and hand sanitizer and selling it out their garage.
Well, maple syrup industry is a lot more complex than selling toilet paper out of your garage. If you try to produce syrup outside the system, you can't freely sell it. Independent producers can be fined, blocked, or forced to comply. And when a product becomes tightly controlled, a black market appears. It was only a matter of time before someone tried to exploit this situation. But what they didn't realize is how easy it could be. Sometime around 2011, a few people realized something that most missed. The strategic syrup reserve was held in a massive red brick warehouse in St. Louis de Blanford. This wasn't some high security vault. It wasn't Fort Knox, just a giant storage building. And that gave them an idea. So they did something laughably simple. They rented space inside that warehouse. So no dramatic break-ins, no nighttime lasers. They simply walked in. And when the operation kicked into high gear, a barrel would be cracked open, a pump hose lowered in, and hundreds of liters of syrup siphoned out. But empty barrels would raise suspicion. So they came up with a simple fix. They filled those barrels with water. Lids back on, barrels stacked neatly in place, and from the outside, nothing looked amiss. For months, they repeated the process. Siphon the syrup, replace with water, and nearly 3,000 tons of syrup quietly flowed out of the reserve and into tanker trucks. It moved through small distributors across the border into the US, sold at shockingly low prices, with no questions asked. For over a year, the thefts continued. No alarms, and no one the wiser. It looked like they were about to get away with the biggest agricultural heist in history.
Whoa. The biggest.
And the baddest.
Yeah, the biggest and heist sound really intense.
Yeah.
Then you add the word agricultural and you just wouldn't think that those three things would go together, you know? This Federation, it sounds like a mafia thing to me a little bit, is how I think about it. You know, the Federation calls a meeting, and the leader of this Federation is, let's call him Don Mapion. And then he learns of the news, and he slams his hand on the table. Someone's disrespected a family. You come into my warehouse, you disrespect my barrels. That new recruit, he was like, what should we do, boss? You know, he turns around and he looks through the window and he takes a long smoke of his cigar and he says, we need to send a message. The Federation never forgets. And then the crooks, they've escaped. They've got all the maple syrup. You know, they're opening up legitimate businesses, waffle houses to launder the maple syrup through. You've got enforcers going to mom and pop breakfast joints. Nice little spot you've got here. Would be a shame if your maple syrup dried up. You've got that one enforcer, you know, he's a real you know, his nickname is Sapper. He doesn't tap trees, he taps kneecaps.
Oh my God.
You know, crime's gone rampant at this point. You've got druggies on the street. You got some of that sweet stuff. I just need a taste, bro. Yeah, man, I've got that Quebec shit. It's a maple epidemic, you know, crime's on the rise. The head of another family is Mrs. Buttersworth. You got people rising up the ranks, you know, they've got like these cool nicknames like Sticky Rick, you know, Maple Mike. I love this story so much. I feel like it's all gonna fall apart though. I mean, this does not sound sustainable. Just none of this story sounds sustainable to me.
Well, that is exactly what happened. It all fell apart.
That's a shame.
It's a shame.
I was really liking it. We could just stop it there, you know.
And we all lived happily ever after.
Yeah, crime is rampant. Everybody's happy.
Back to reality. So on 30 July 2012, Michael Guerrero, an inspector hired to audit the reserve, arrives at the red brick warehouse. Inside, it's dim. Rows upon rows of barrels stacked 6 high. The air is thick with that unmistakable maple sweetness. The gaps between the barrel stacks are barely wide enough to walk through. So he shimmies his way through the stockpile. Guerrero trips on one of the bases of the barrels and grabs its lid. As he grabs the rim of the lid though, he can hear the liquid shake inside. Slosh, slosh. But wait a minute. Syrup doesn't slosh. Syrup is thick, viscous, like motor oil.
And way more expensive, I've learned.
Yeah. And this slosh sounded more like water sitting in a half-empty jug. Suspicion creeps in. His mind races. He unscrews the lid slowly, almost as if confirming a theory he wasn't ready to test.
Was the theory, I hate watery syrup on my waffles?
So inside, not the thick, goopy brown syrup that smells like vanilla and childhood mornings, but water. Cold, ordinary, and as far as strategic reserves go, useless water.
Depends on the country. That could be quite valuable.
And once that discovery was made, the hunt was on. So soon after, in August 2012, the Quebec police launched the largest agricultural crime investigation in Canadian history. We're talking surveillance, financial tracking, wiretaps. They're hunting maple syrup like it's cocaine.
I thought you would just follow the sticky footsteps of the warehouse. I feel like you went to a lot of trouble and they'd be like, sticky footsteps that way.
What?
Found
Pooh
them.
Bear? Well, apparently this is pretty high-flying technology. If you shine ultraviolet light on syrup and it glows, each batch has like a unique molecular signature based on its like maple purity. So if it's like pure maple, it like apparently glows a different light or something like that.
Gold.
Yeah, so like the forensics teams begin like seizing and testing syrup barrels across North America. And they get positive matches for the strategic reserve syrup everywhere, from Vermont to New Hampshire to Orlando. The stolen syrup is being sold from coast to coast in the US. In September 2012, investigations led the police to raiding an alleged distributor in New Brunswick. Inside, over $1 million Canadian in syrup. They questioned the 73-year-old culprit, who admits that it all came from one man, Richard Valerius. Richard was a syrup dealer who'd been battling the Maple Syrup Federation for over a decade. In 2007, the Federation had fined him nearly $1.8 million for illegal sale of maple syrup and seized his house.
I would be terrified walking down the street with a little sachet of maple syrup that someone gave me.
I bought this legitimately, I swear, sir.
I found it. It was planted on me. It's like off to prison with you.
I wonder if they have maple syrup sniffing dog, or maybe they're like maple syrup bears. They can like find it.
Bears, maybe. It's just Canadians on all fours.
It's just Canadians.
Licking it up, you know. Like, look, I'll be a sniffer dog. I love this shit. You know?
So they find him. They seized his house back in the day, and now I think he holds a bit of a grudge. Because now he's at the center of an $18 million heist. The police gather all the evidence they can against him. We're talking wiretaps, bank records, cash transactions. Authorities uncover a massive underground distribution network. Brokers, transporters, and resellers moving stolen syrup across provinces and into the US. This wasn't just theft. This was organized crime and economic warfare. By December 2012, the police were ready to make their arrest. They move in and intercept Richard Valerius and arrest him at his home. Within the next 48 hours, more than 20 people were in custody. And while in his defense, he tries to claim that the mafia threatened him at gunpoint to undertake this heist, the evidence really showed another story. He was found guilty and sentenced to 8 years in prison and fined $9.4 million in restitution. You know, most of the syrup was never recovered, and only about 2/3 of the syrup was ever traced. Bottles of stolen reserve maple syrup were probably poured onto your pancakes, drizzled over your waffles, or stirred into your coffee, and you never even noticed.
Wow. What a story. Well done. I think it's wild that they were using forensics to capture them and track them down. I mean, I imagine they're just in the lab, you know, a couple of guys, and they're probably going through the samples, right? And you've got that one guy, it's a bit of an idiot, you know, he's young, and he's like testing the samples, and he's being very unprofessional at this point. So he puts his finger in it, and he's like very sticky, and he puts it in his mouth. And the other guy's like, "What you doing?" And he's like, "Huh, yeah, maple syrup." And he's like, "Mate, that's not maple syrup. They're the semen samples. The maple syrup's over in the corner."
Why is there semen samples at the scene?
Because they do it all together.
I did not mention them as all like from a separate crime scene.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You know, it's an easy mistake to make. You know, we've all done it. I imagine years from now, you've got the grandson of one of the convicted, and he's in the attic, and he finds this map, and it's got a cross on it, like, there's this treasure, and then he traces it on, he goes through fields and up mountains, and he traces it to this tree, and he digs down, and he's like, oh, there's a box, and he opens it, and there's just a glow on his face from maple syrup, and he's like, I found it. I found the lost treasure. And then all of a sudden, you know, you've got the detectives that come from under the tree, and they're like, "We've been following you for some time. Thank you for helping us find the maple syrup." And they arrest him, and then he takes one, and he just puts it in his pocket. And I'm like, okay, book him. And that's how it ends.
So I like to end these by trying to find a moral in the story. Do you have one for this?
Yeah. If you're testing samples, don't put your finger in and taste it, because it might not be maple syrup.
Oh dear.